kids, back for story time with Mrs. Jardins. Today we're going to read the story of Ferdinand. Now, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but there's also a movie made out of this. Now, let me tell you a little bit about it. So, Ferdinand is a bull who likes to be alone. Now, a bull is a male cow, and they've got big horns. So instead of running and butting heads with the other bulls, because that's what bulls do, they ram heads like that, he spends his days in the pasture smelling the flowers. One day Ferdinand gets stung by a bee. It hurts so much that he starts to run wildly around. A group of men looking for a tough bull to put in the bullfights notices Ferdinand and think he's the meanest, strongest bull around. We're going to read it to find out what happens when this calm, peaceful bull gets into the bull ring. Okay. So, let's talk about some of the words first that we're going to hear in the story. So we know that a bull is a male cow, butt heads, just like that. Two bulls with their heads and their horns go just like that. How about pasture? Pasture is a big, think of it like a big green grassy field. That's what a pasture is, with flowers, really nice. Bullfight, well, it is just what it sounds like. There's a big ring with kind of in a big circle with all people watching it, sitting up in the stands, all in the big circle. And you've got a bullfighter in there, and he waves a flag, and it's his point to dodge the bull, and that's to get away from the bull. So, how about fierce? Fierce is just that. Fierce and mean. Okay, so we're going to learn some new words, and we'll encounter them as we read, and we'll talk about the words. Okay, now the story of Ferdinand. That's our title, by Monroe Leaf. That is our author. Remember, when it says by, that's the author. This is the front cover of the book. Now down below it says drawings by Robert Lawson. So he's the illustrator. Remember, this is the back cover of the book, and this is the spine. Now let's read the story of Ferdinand. Once upon a time in Spain, Spain's a country all across the world in a continent called Europe. We're in the continent of North America. There was a little bull, and his name was Ferdinand. All the other little bulls he lived with would run and jump and butt their heads together. See, that's them butting heads together. That's a good picture of it right there. Running right towards each other, ready to butt heads. But not Ferdinand. He liked to just sit quietly and smell the flowers. He had a favorite spot out in the pasture under a cork tree. See, there's a big grassy pasture. There's the cork tree. It was his favorite tree, and he would sit in its shade all day and smell the flowers. Sometimes his mother, who was a cow, would worry about him. She was afraid he would be lonesome all by himself. "Why don't you run and play with the other little bulls and skip and butt your head?" she would say. But Ferdinand would shake his head. "I like it better here, where I can just sit quietly and smell the flowers." His mother saw that he was not lonesome, and because she was an understanding mother, even though she was a cow, she let him just sit there and be happy. As the years went by, Ferdinand grew and grew until he was very big and strong. Aw, see? There's a growing chart right there, a growth chart showing how he's growing. You know, I have one for my son to show how tall he's growing. Maybe your mommies and daddies do too for you. All the other bulls who had grown up with him in the same pasture would fight each other all day. They would butt each other and stick each other with their horns. What they wanted most of all was to be picked to fight at the bullfights in Madrid. That's a big city in Spain. But not Ferdinand. He still liked to just sit quietly under the cork tree and smell the flowers. One day, 5 men came in very funny hats to pick the biggest, fastest, roughest bull to fight in the bullfights in Madrid. All the other bulls ran around snorting and butting, leaping and jumping, so the men would think they were very, very strong and fierce and pick them. Ferdinand knew they wouldn't pick him, and he didn't care, so he went out to his favorite cork tree to sit down. He didn't look where he was sitting, and instead of sitting on the nice cool grass in the shade, he sat on a bumblebee. Ouch, you think that would hurt? Well, if you were a bumblebee and a bull sat on you, what would you do? You would sting him. And that is just what this bee did to Ferdinand. Look, oh, look at that face. Wow, did it hurt. Ferdinand jumped up with a snort. He ran around puffing and snorting, butting and pawing the ground as if he were crazy. The 5 men saw him and they all shouted with joy. Here was the largest and fiercest bull of all, just the one for the bullfights in Madrid. So they took him away for the bullfight day in a cart. What a day it was. Flags were flying, bands were playing, and all the lovely ladies had flowers in their hair. They had a parade into the bull ring. First came the banderilleros with long sharp pins with ribbons on them to stick in the bull and make him mad. That's what they do. Next came the picadores, who rode skinny horses, and they had long spears to stick in the bull and make him madder. Then came the matador, the proudest of all. He thought he was very handsome and bowed to the ladies. He had a red cape and a sword and was supposed to stick the bull last of all. Then came the bull, and you know who that was, don't you? Who do you think? Ferdinand. They called him Ferdinand the Fierce, and all the banderilleros were afraid of him, and the picadores were afraid of him, and the matador was scared stiff. Look at those faces. Ferdinand ran to the middle of the ring, and everyone shouted and clapped because they thought he was going to fight fiercely and butt and snort and stick his horns around. What do you think happens? But not Ferdinand. When he got to the middle of the ring, he saw the flowers and all the lovely ladies' hair, and he just sat down quietly and smelled. He wouldn't fight and be fierce no matter what they did. He just sat and smelled. And the banderilleros were mad, and the picadores were madder, and the matador was so mad he cried because he couldn't show off with his cape and sword. So they had to take Ferdinand home. And for all I know, he is sitting there still, under his favorite cork tree, smelling the flowers just quietly. He is very happy. The end. I hope you guys enjoyed that story. Maybe if school starts again soon, we can get the movie and watch it. So, we know that Ferdinand likes to sit on the grass under his favorite tree and smell the flowers instead of playing with the other bulls. I think Ferdinand likes to be alone. What do you think? Ferdinand thinks he will not be picked to be in the bullfights. Maybe he thinks he's not strong or the type of bull that the men are looking for. Maybe. Now, Ferdinand does not fight once he gets in the bull ring. He looks like he has no idea what the men want him to do. Maybe he doesn't. So, let's think about this for a minute. I wonder if Ferdinand ever played with other bulls when he was younger. Maybe he didn't, and he didn't know how to act. Maybe that's why he doesn't want to play with the others. Why do you think that Ferdinand enjoys sitting in the cool grass, watching butterflies and smelling the flowers? And lastly, Ferdinand sits and smells the flowers in the bull ring too, doesn't he? I wonder if he knows what he's supposed to do when the bullfighters try to fight him. Maybe he doesn't. Okay, so let's go through some of those vocabulary words again. So a bull in a herd of cattle is the male. That's the boy cow. Butt heads, like I said, is to knock heads together. Pasture, the big grassy land where animals eat. Bullfights and bull rings is a sport in Spain where a person, that's the matador, fights with bulls in a place called a bull ring. How about snorting? Breathing hard and noisily through your nose. How about fierce? Strong and scary. Okay, let's try this word again. Banderilleros. They're the persons who use darts in a bullfight. And the picadores, persons who use the spears in a bullfight. Spear is a stick with a sharp point at one end. It's long and it has a really, really sharp point at one end. Remember, a matador is a person who fights with a bull in the bull ring. So, I hope you enjoyed our story today. And just think about these last few things. Ferdinand's mother worries about him when he doesn't fight like the other bulls. What do you worry about? And who helps you when you are worried? The men are very scared of Ferdinand before he comes into the building, aren't they? What do you do when you feel scared? Ferdinand feels happy and peaceful sitting under the cork tree. Where do you like to go to feel happy and peaceful? Remember, Ferdinand talks to his mother and tells her that he is happy being alone in the pasture. Is there an adult you like to talk to about how you feel? Who's that? And the bulls spend all day fighting together. I think they like being together. What do you like to do with your friends? What did you think about that? I hope you really enjoyed our story today. And hopefully you guys will come to school soon, and maybe we can read it again, and maybe we can watch the movie. Bye, guys.